Hello, my name is Tammy Sijarto, founder of Project ScaleUp. I consult early stage companies, both startups and small businesses, turning ideas into viable and sustainable businesses for the long term. Our guest today is a dear friend of mine who has spent years in management and leadership positions, including procurement for DuPont. And she has a burning passion for environmental sustainability. She's made headlines and headways into breaking down barriers in adopting Scope 3 emissions into procurement processes via her startup company, Kloopify. Please welcome from Pittsburgh, Daniella Osio.
Oh, thank you, Tammy. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Yeah, so I am the CEO and co-founder of Kloopify. My name is Daniella Osio, as Tammy just mentioned. And I have a burning passion to operationalize sustainability within procurement. So what does that mean? I want to make sure that, historically, the procurement industry and procurement professionals have only used price and quality to evaluate suppliers. But given pressure from investors, regulatory pressure, and customers, price and quality just isn't enough. And I was a, executive in the procurement space, and I know firsthand that we didn't have the visibility into the environmental impact of all of our purchased goods and services. And so quit my corporate job in 2021 to start Kloopify and have since made it my number one job to give procurement professionals the data and technology to operationalize sustainability within their procurement processes.
For those of us, or for those who might be watching, who don't quite understand the differences in the types of emissions, can you explain Scope 3? Because when I talk about your company to others, most people have a grasp of, when you book airline tickets, they see carbon emissions. And for most people, we understand carbon emissions. Some people go as far as understanding what Scope 1 and Scope 2 might be. But when I say Scope 3, they're like, what's Scope 3?
Yeah, so let's start even from the beginning for those that don't know what Scope 1 and Scope 2 is, or even just when we say Scope 1, 2, and 3, what are we even
What
talking
are they? Yeah.
What are we talking about? So there is this thing called the greenhouse gas protocol. And in this protocol, it pretty much outlines how you should calculate and categorize the different kinds of emissions related with doing business. Scope 1 is the emissions related with your four walls. Scope 2 is the emissions related with the energy production. And then Scope 3 is the emissions related to your upstream and downstream value chain. The thing that we focus on is all purchased goods and services, which is your entire value chain. And it's happening outside your four walls. Scope 1 and 2 happens inside your four walls. And it's pretty easy to calculate because you have control over the data that you need to collect. Scope 3, on the other hand, which is what happens outside your four walls, your downstream, your value chain, that's the hardest part. And even as we break down Scope 3, what Kloopify really focuses on is all purchased goods and services. So your entire supply chain and giving you visibility into your supply chain. One thing to call out right here early on is that we are not a reporting company. We feed data into reporting companies because we actually collect far more visibility and data into the value chain than what reporting companies currently do. So we don't cover all of Scope 3. What we end up doing is covering all things purchased goods and services. And so we take a look at who are you buying, what are you buying, how much are you buying, take a look at every single transaction, every supplier, every commodity, and allow you to establish a baseline for all of your purchased goods and services, and identify where it makes sense to get supplier specific or start to peel back the onion so that you can start getting supplier specific information about the commodities that you procure. And when you have that data, you can make it part of your entire procurement process, which is where we specialize. We know that procurement's processes are unique and they're different. And you go from, the contract management where you do your RFP, your request for proposal, your request for information, all the way to your, supplier evaluation, KPIs, et cetera. We come into the procurement space, and with all of the data that we gather through procurement, we can feed reporting companies that allow them to tell the industry kind of where they are currently.
Can you provide a common example, for example, to illustrate how your focus on purchase goods and services kind of ladder up into the procurement process
Yeah.
of an organization.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's take a company like Owens Corning, right? Owens Corning is a large manufacturing company. They have thousands of suppliers and buy millions of commodities. So what would we do? We come in and we tell Owens Corning, all right, you have a goal to reduce your, supply chain emissions by 30% by 2030. So what we do is we take a look at every single purchase goods and service. We run it through the Kloopify algorithm and we tell you what commodities and what suppliers, what business units are driving the most amount of your environmental impact. So giving you that baseline. And so the chief procurement officer now knows, all right, this is my starting point. And here are the areas where I will have the maximum ROI on my sustainability initiatives. So now the CPO knows, all right, now let's get all of his leadership team on the same board. So they join Kloopify. And so they're individually responsible for different purchases. A good rule of thumb is for every 100 suppliers, there is one buyer. So you can imagine when you have thousands of suppliers, you're going to have a lot of buyers, and each buyer is going to be responsible for different parts of the entire supply chain. So you are a buyer of, resin. So you come in and you now see what your organization is doing. But now in Kloopify, you can see what's my own responsibility. What is the emitting carbon footprint of the resin that I buy? So as a supplier, as a buyer, I go, all right, these are my top 10 resin suppliers. Here's the impact for all of my resin purchases. Now it's my job to start working with these suppliers to set goals, to get supplier specific information on the resin that we buy. And we facilitate this entire process through the Kloopify engine.
Why is it the right time for Kloopify?
Yeah, well, during the pandemic, it really highlighted the need for us to focus on sustainability. And so customers and investors started putting pressure on organizations to deliver on these sustainability goals that they've set, for the past 5 to 7 years. And what we are noticing as they are delivering these goals, or as these companies are setting the goals, is that the companies that move first and that provide sustainable solutions actually outperform their competitors. There's a study by McKinsey that sustainable companies have about a 6 to 9% higher profit margin. Not only that, but consumers, and this is a study by EY, consumers are willing to pay up to 10% premium for sustainable goods and services, even through inflation, if you've got data to prove that you are the more sustainable option compared to what's offered in the industry. So you've got the pressure from consumers and from investors, but you also have regulatory pressure. So the SEC announced that they will be requiring companies to disclose their carbon footprint. And in Europe, there are carbon disclosure requirements. So if you want to do business in the modern world, you need to have visibility into the environmental impact of how you do business. And so we facilitate, once you've set those goals, the ability to execute on those goals. Because as you know, if you make a goal and if you make an announcement to the public and you don't meet those goals, that can have a serious impact on your shareholder price, on your bottom line, and how much money you make, which is not something companies want to mess with.
I'm wondering, and I don't know if you have insight into your current client base's profitability or margins or anything like that, but have you heard that, our margins are better because our products are more sustainable now?
Yeah, what our clients are seeing is that they want to correlate the reductions in the impact from buying more sustainable goods and services from their suppliers to directly into the materials that they feed so that they can put a premium on sustainable goods and services. And so you're seeing that organizations are making the correlation between we're buying more sustainably, so now we can increase our margins on the sales side. So it's a direct correlation of if you do the right thing, it's like you get the carrot or the stick.
Yeah.
You are going to get the carrot and move forward and be able to meet the really increasing demand for sustainable goods and avoid getting hit with the stick, which is what's going to happen to many organizations that don't start working towards achieving these goals now and think that if they start in 2028 when they've got a goal for 2030 that somehow they're going to be able to achieve it.
Has traction for Kloopify come faster from countries in Europe where there's more of a stricter implementation for environmental repercussions if you don't meet what's being mandated by the European Union for things like this? Or is it coming from the US because they know what's being implemented in Europe is coming here and they're trying to prepare?
Yeah. So I would say it's a pretty even scale for US and Europe. And the reason why is because we target enterprise organizations with large and complex supply chains. So no matter what, if you are a complex supply chain, you probably are doing business in Europe, you probably are doing business here. So even if your headquarters aren't in Europe, you are feeling the same amount of pressure here in the US to deliver on those goals and to get that visibility. And you're seeing that reporting companies kind of came first as in the tech space of like providing that goal, and they're great to give you high level visibility and to kind of get you started on the strategy. But where we come in is we actually help you execute on those goals. So as more companies are making this transition, more of them are realizing we need something that's going to empower our procurement teams and empower our organizations to actually be able to deliver on these goals. Because now we've got the reporting, now we know where to go. How are we going to execute on this? And that's where we come in. We solve the hard problem, which is the how are we going to get from where we are today to where we need to be tomorrow.
And okay, so when you solve the how, the tracking and the progress, you also enable the companies to monitor their progress. Okay.
That's exactly right. And it all comes with setting goals with your suppliers and within your supply chain. So working with your suppliers and the people that have the relationship with suppliers and with your supply chain is procurement, which is why we're targeting procurement, because procurement is the key to making meaningful impact reductions within your goal. There's a common saying that study from the CDP shows you that up to 80% of your company's footprint can come from your purchased goods and services. So similar to you are what you eat, you are what you buy. And you
So
and I
Scope 3 is responsible for this.
Exactly. All purchased goods and services fall under scope 3, which is the hardest to get visibility, but it's the hardest to take action on because it happens outside your four walls, which is why procurement is the key to enabling impact reductions because they hold the relationship with the suppliers and they're the ones that can influence the suppliers to do the right thing or to move in a certain direction.
Hi, hello everyone. So this is a demo for the Kloopify application, which all of our customers will be using. The first thing which you will see is our dashboard. So the data we are using is a demo data for Gotham City. The first thing which a customer sees is a high-level overview of the entire spend. Here it is $54.5 million across 77 suppliers and 16,700 something transactions. You also see the total CO2e emissions, which is about 33.8 thousand tons of CO2 equivalent. You see the carbon price, and you also see the overall carbon intensity. The second thing you will notice is a time series graph on the right, which shows trends in the spend in CO2 emissions and also the carbon intensity. So this is a great way to display the trends through higher level management, your CPOs, and similarly. Obviously, you can filter this data for the last 12 months, year to date, last year. Right now it's set to all time. Let's move on to the breakdown view. So breakdown view breaks down your data with different entities. So right now it's sorted by suppliers. You can do it by items, by cost centers, by sectors, and by industry as well. If you hover over something, you can see the amount of CO2 in metric tons and also the spend. So using this, you can see who is the company's biggest offender. In this case, it's Gotham City Light Company, and also how much they are spending relative to their overall spend, which is just 7%. So this is a great page to find interesting insights about the spend and the CO2 analysis of a company. You can also filter this based on different timelines. Let's also take a look at cost centers. Here you can see something interesting that our analysis, 13% was done through spend-based analysis and 87% was done through supplier-specific analysis. What this means is that this is good quality data. We ideally want a lot of supplier-specific data. And this is how it's done. Also, if you click into a particular line item, you can see the detailed transactions. So again, we are asking companies for their spend, and we are mapping each line item to generate these analysis. And we also provide a detailed transaction view for the same. You can see the item, the supplier, the date, the cost, CO2 equivalent, the methods which we just talked about, and also you can find more details, which is when this data was uploaded, when the import was completed, and other surrounding information. This makes the data auditable and more resilient. Next thing you can see is your profile, obviously, in which you get certain rights. You also get notifications, which just notifies you when your upload is completed or when the entire processing is completed. And obviously, you have basic information like name, email address. Next thing, since we talked about imports, this is the page where you can import new data. So we ask for CSV files and we only require 5 basic fields. So all the clients, all the customers can import the data using this tool over here.
Given the complexity of scope 3, like we see scope 1 and scope 2 solutions for years, we've seen them. What kind of team did you have to build to get this going in the scale and the speed that you needed it to go to service the demand that you're seeing from the client interactions or potential customers that you had early on?
Yeah. So I want to say there's like 3 key buckets to Kloopify. You've got the technology, because we are a tech. We use machine learning. We are a technology company. You've got the procurement lens, right? Because we are building for procurement professionals. So you've got to make sure that you understand procurement. And then you have the sustainability data, like climate footprint information. So let's break it down into 3. So technology, we brought on a CTO. His name is Nate Good. He is our CTO. He's a 3-time CTO, started multiple organizations and has seen very successful exits. And so bringing him in and giving that expertise to understand the data security part that we really need to get, and the foundation between, hey, we're building a software company, we better have somebody on our team that can help build that, right? Then the procurement lens. I come from procurement. I spent, the majority of my career in procurement and managed over $600 million of spend through the 2nd largest merger in history. So won awards like 30 under 30. I know procurement. I love procurement. It's been a space and a place that I've had a great time, and think that, historically it's been undervalued, and we are a strategic function. So it's continuing to be elevated as a function within businesses. And then the last one, which is the climate tech, like we need to have expertise on people that know what data to pull from, how to do the mapping, how to do the, the back end to make sure that we're following all the rules. So my co-founder, who happens to also be my father, we've always had a dream of starting our own company, but he worked in the data space, the climate tech space. And so he came in and did and really started and strengthened that back end. Plus, we hired a life cycle assessment advisor who is a pioneer out of Carnegie Mellon. Her name is Gwen, and she is really making sure that as we're going and setting these foundations for these equations and for these calculations, that we're doing it in a way that is what the industry's best practices are. And now we've continued to build the team, right? Because now with, paying clients and scaling and growing, we got to make sure that once we close the contract, the work isn't done. This is where the work just gets started. So we got to make sure that implementation's going, that we're capturing the feedback from our clients and bringing it back to our product and our tech team. And under Nate, we've got 4 developers, 2 front end, 2 back end. Under me, we've got Nahal, who does our implementation, plus is the bridge to product. And then Nacho has his lifecycle assessment team. Oh, Nacho is the nickname for Ignacio, by the way, in Venezuela. Say Ignacio, but then also
fun fact, he's NASA cited, right?
Yeah, he is. If you do a little Google search or a search on Ignacio Osio, you see all of his cited works. His thesis out of CMU was one of the most cited theses in the School of Mechanical Engineering and what we now call, machine learning. So yes, if you're interested, go give it a search. He has been cited by NASA and other great organizations. But anyways, so Nacho has his team. And so that runs the back end, the analysis, the data, making sure that we're capturing the right information, because it takes a village and a team to make this possible. This is not by no means a one-man show. This is 100% team effort, and we wouldn't be where we are without every single person that has joined the Kloop.
The Kloop is what you call the team.
Join the Kloop. Exactly right.
Only you can make up a name like this.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing the Kloop.
No problem.
Very capable team, indeed. As a woman founder, did you in the beginning find it more difficult or easier to start a company, or are you more along the lines of, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what I missed, or I don't know what I would have gained because you don't have purview on the other side?
I think it's a catch-22. It's a little bit of both, right? So in life, we all get dealt cards, right? We all have our own cards that we get dealt. And I think it's our own responsibility to maximize the cards that we were given. I don't come from a trust fund. Visually, you look at me, and many times I don't look like what a leader and executive would look like in organizations.
You're
But
young too.
I'm
Woman and
young,
young.
right? Yeah, I'm young. I'm brown, and as summer continues, I will get more brown. But long story short, is like there are things that don't scream tech CEO with years of corporate experience. But I'm an excellent communicator. I also am an expert at what I do, and I'm very good at that. I've built an incredible network while I was at my corporate job at DuPont. And so I leveraged my strengths to be able to, start Kloopify. And I didn't allow the things that were holding me back, or the things that made it hard for me to start a company, to stop me, because there's always going to be a reason for why you shouldn't do it. Man, woman, white, brown, black, it doesn't matter. There will always be a barrier in front of you, or some reason to not start a company. It is your job to empower yourself and to identify, hey, I'm going to face barriers. I'm going to have people undermine me, question me, disrespect me along the process. But it's my job to not give those people power over me, and to keep pushing and keep working hard and keep trying. And so that's kind of the mentality that I had. And then I just surrounded myself with an incredible network. So I had people that were cheering, that were supporting, that were connecting. And if you put yourself out there, and if you try and work hard, and if you show up, and that's half the battle, if you show up, then you're much more likely to succeed.
There are two things I noticed about you when you were in the incubator program where we met. One, I think you had a family of geniuses, Nacho for one, right? Very highly cited, and can find a technical solution to every technical issue or calculation issue or whatever it is that he's dealt with, or that you pose to him. But you, on the other hand, your EQ and leadership is just out of this world. You manage the work, you manage people, you manage through client objections in such a finesse way that you can read between the lines before they even say the lines, if you know what I mean. You have that incredible EQ talent, but also, as you were talking about empowering yourself, for example, you're also one of those, while you're going through the challenges of starting a company in its early stages, you're also able to come from a place of abundance where you actually help other entrepreneurs while struggling on certain areas yourself. And so I thought that was an incredible trait. And so I think that was a marker for your success. But since, what's that?
One thing I want to add there, Tammy, is for me, it's not about me winning. It's about us winning. And I live and believe in a world of abundance, where success is not if I have someone next to me can't. And if you give in abundance, you will receive in abundance. And that's how I like to operate my own kind of life. And I felt like it's been really, really strong and really powerful for me. The more I connect people, the more I am connected as well. And that's led to a lot of success, a lot of steps in progress.
If you open yourself up, it'll come back like 100-fold. But I did want to ask you, because you have kind of that like high EQ, helpfulness, and you have that connection with clients in a way that you can read between the lines before they say the lines. Like, are there any special marketing or customer acquisition techniques that you found that works in a B2B environment?
I would say, what's really helped me, and this is something that I attribute to my father, is that we've always had a dream of starting our own company. And I always wanted to, rebel in a sense and create and solve problems. And I've always been kind of that type of personality. But he always said you have to understand how the world works before you can solve any problems that the world has. And so I started working inside of DuPont. And what helped me in the B2B space in particular is that I lived this problem firsthand. And when I was working in my corporate job, my number one thing that I wanted to do was meet everyone and learn everything. So no matter what job you're in, make it your top priority to network. Network is one of the greatest things that you can do, is just meet more people, learn about what their jobs are, learn about what's going on. Because when I left DuPont, I had an incredible network of procurement professionals, and I leveraged my network a lot, especially in the beginning days. And that network in itself has continued to be opened up for me. So network is something that I strongly recommend. And then when you network, you're actually going to be open up other channels as well. So what we're end up doing is, the best thing you can do is have a warm introduction to somebody. And that's way better than trying to do a cold outreach. So there's two kind of parts. So one, leverage your network. Plus, once you get the right people, for example, we just brought on Shelly Stewart. Shelly Stewart is in the industry. He's kind of like the godfather of procurement, let's call him, right? He's one of the key people that if you're a procurement exec, you know
Shelly.
You know Shelly. Yeah, Shelly Stewart. And I worked under Shelly when I worked at DuPont, and I made it my personal, we ended up forming a great relationship. He's been a mentor to me throughout my career. And now, thankfully, we just brought on Shelly Stewart as an advisor to Kloopify. And that's just an incredible, incredible asset to have because of his strategic mind, but also because of the network that Shelly brings with him. And then the other half is you need to have 1,000 at-bats. So make sure that you are always going out and sending cold emails, sending emails, getting your name out there, speaking at conferences, elevating the brand. So learn what conferences are relevant to your industry and then put yourself out there. You can't sell if you aren't putting yourself out there. And it's going to feel so uncomfy. So uncomfy.
Like the face that you made right there. That says it all. So uncomfy.
So uncomfy, because you are going to be like, my product isn't where it needs to be, and this isn't perfect, and that isn't perfect. And as entrepreneurs, we're always finding things like we need to do all of these things. You need to be okay with the uncomfies. You need to still go out there and be okay with the fact that, yes, your product isn't perfect. If your product is perfect, you're launching too late. Yes, you don't know everything that's going on. Put yourself out there, because the best thing that you can do is have your customers tell you what is wrong and what they need from you. And that is how you build a valuable solution. That is how you solve a meaningful problem. Be obsessed with solving the problem. Be obsessed with making yourself real uncomfies and putting yourself out there.
Now, I've been telling entrepreneurs for years now that when you're uncomfortable, that means you're growing. And you can't you can't be a perfectionist, because you are not the one who's going to perfect your product. It's trying to make that sales call and having the customer not be willing to pull out their wallet for your solution because it doesn't serve their needs. Let them tell you how you're going to solve their needs and problems.
Yep.
So thank you for sharing that, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, when they go out to a trade show and they question, well, I don't think that's going to be the audience, or I don't think I'm going to get any clients. Well, the purpose is not to get clients. The purpose is customer discovery. Let them tell you why they don't want your product.
Because a no, the fastest way to a yes is a no.
Yeah.
All sales is an exchange of value. If I give you this, will you give me that? And that usually is money. Will you give me money for this? No. Okay, why not?
Why? Yeah.
Why? Okay, because it doesn't have this. So if I give you this, will you give me that? If I give you this, will you give me that? It's an exchange of value. If you understand that what you're trying to do is exchange value, and your entire time you're just testing. You're testing your value proposition. That's why they call it a value proposition, because you're testing the value that you're providing to the client, and if they're willing to give you in exchange what you need, which many times as a company is money. Will you give me money for the thing I will give you? No. And then you can start peeling back the onion. No. Is it the price? Is it the product? Is it the timing? Which one is it? And so then you can go back and forth with those types of situations, because it's always a thing about exchanging values. And as startups, we do not have time. So the fastest thing that you can do is have somebody tell you no. No is a great way to get to a yes. It is the fastest way to a yes.
What I noticed in your final pitch when you graduated the incubation program that we had is from the midpoint, which is the 6-month mark, to the 1-year mark, because you were having those sales conversations, bam, 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 in between, the way that your pitch has changed in the way that it attracted investors in the end went like this. And it wasn't because you were perfecting the pitch in a vacuum. You were perfecting it because you were getting no's, no, this isn't, no, and no, to the point where you understood where the value was not, and you eliminated all of those from your pitch.
Oh yeah.
And then you started getting yeses.
Yes, because that's the number one thing. Be obsessed, like effing obsessed with solving a problem. Don't be obsessed with your solution. Your solution means nothing if you don't solve a problem. Be obsessed with the problem. And if you continue, I mean, when Tammy, you remember this, when we applied to the incubator program, our company was completely different than when we graduated. We pivoted because we were obsessed with solving a problem, obsessed with providing value to the end client. And we had an idea of what they want. And when they told us no because of this, this, and this, and then we pivoted a little. And then it was like, okay, is this right? And they're like, no, this, this, and this. Okay, pivot some more. And understand the problem. The more you understand and like really peel back the onion of the problem, you'll get to where you need to be, which is solving the solution and giving them the solution that's going to solve their problem. That's what you need to be obsessed with.
And I remember as you were solving for the solution, we started to get more detailed and started showing them more details so they can react more. We didn't care if those details were not something we thought was perfect. That what we thought didn't matter. What mattered was giving them something to react to, right?
Absolutely.
I remember those days when we're like, Daniella, show them this, show them something they can,
they can touch, they can feel, they can see, even if it's not built, but it's on a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint. Yeah, because then we graduated that incubator program, and because we were obsessed with the problem, and because we had the right team, the right time, we were, we really we're building ourselves with a strong foundation. We ended up graduating the incubator program and raising our pre-seed seed round, where we raised $1.5 million and really launched Kloopify to the next level where we are currently at, and we're going to continue to scale and build and continue to be obsessed with solving the problem.
So our tip for today is do not be perfectionist. Talk to customers. Get the no's. Don't think that.
If you aren't getting enough no, if you're not getting no's, you're not swinging it bad enough. If you're not swinging it bad enough, you're leaving opportunities at the table.
It's a numbers game. The more you talk to people, the more you talk to potential customers, the more answers you're going to get. So
absolutely.
And then moving to a different type of inquiry. What has been the main contributors aside from talking to customers? I know that was one of the best contributors to your success. And when I say success, I know in a startup, success always comes with challenges. So the definition of success is very subjective.
Fluid. Yeah.
Fluid. Yeah. But, if you can enumerate or pinpoint main contributors to hitting the milestones in your entrepreneurship journey, would it be funding, added capacity, mentorship, team members, networking? I know you mentioned networking. Any specific ones you can think of?
I mean, Tammy, all of those are really important. All of those create success. But the one thing that I think is what's going to make or break a founder is your mentality and your own mental health. So I like to live by this concept of anti-fragility. And what anti-fragility is, it's when you benefit from stress and chaos. So resilience means that you can get through stress and chaos and stay the same. Anti-fragility means that you can get through, that you experience stress and chaos and become better. And so what I like to live my life, and even as a founder, is that you're always, like you said, you're always going to hit roadblocks, barriers, the next challenge, the next problem is just 2 seconds ahead of you, right? And it could be in the same day. You have a great day and a bad day. It's all, it's the name of the game. You're going to be challenged. There's going to be problems. There's going to be roadblocks. But what gets you through those roadblocks is your ability to take that stress, take the chaos, and learn from it and become better from it and grow from it instead of just staying the same. I think that mentality is what's going to get you through it, because you need network. If you've got a company and you're going to need to build fast to solve the problem, then you're going to need funding. You're going to need mentors, because you know that there are things that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and they know things and they can help you. All of those things are required, but none of it matters if you fall apart. None of it matters if you can't benefit from it. None of it matters if you can't grow and become a better person along the way and be able to deal with the stresses that come with it. And I'm not saying it's easy. There are days where where entrepreneurship, it kicks your ass, no questions about it. You go home and you're like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, did I really just do this to myself? Like, what is going on? But if you can just get up, benefit, what did the day teach you? What did you need to learn? And what can you apply to tomorrow to make it better? That's what's going to get you through it.
You and me both. I have been a proponent of anti-fragility, and I know it's not very popular. But there is a man named David Goggins.
Yeah.
Love him. And
the cookie jar. I use the cookie jar metaphor all the time of so David Goggins, he had trained to become a Navy SEAL pretty much his whole life. He has such a strong mental will, right? And he uses this thing called the cookie jar, where when you are feeling like you can't give any more, just reach back in and remember the things and the times that you also thought you couldn't get through it, but did, and use that as a way to motivate yourself. But yeah, David Goggins is, I listened to his book. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And if you don't, have time to read the book, there's YouTube interviews of him. Very good to watch. There's also a book that called The Opportunity Analysis Canvas. It talks about the entrepreneurial mindset, and part of it is ownership of your results, basically, and among other things. But if you read between the lines, you can see anti-fragility concepts in there and resilience.
Absolutely.
So thank you for sharing that. All right. So is there anything that keeps you up at night these days?
Everything. No. Yeah, most things keep me up at night, but the one thing that keeps me up the most is, how can I move faster at the fastest pace to solve this need and to capture this market, right? And so making sure that we are deploying our capital in a conservative or in a strategic way, but also in a way that's allowing us to move as fast as we possibly can and as fast as we should in order to answer the call. So that keeps me up. Sales always keeps you up. You're never selling enough. You're never doing enough when it comes to sales. So making sure that that's a top priority, and building team, right? I think it's really important to have the right team from the beginning, because that's going to dictate your success a lot. So making sure that you're getting the right people on your team that fit the mission and vision, but also fit the culture.
Can you share any upcoming product releases or expansion plans?
Yes. So we will be releasing commodity specific. So organizations can move from spend based to usage and commodity specific. And we will become one of the first technologies in the world to partner with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development under their PACT framework, which is the Partnership for Carbon Transparency. So very exciting. That will be releasing here in the next couple weeks.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Very excited.
Kloopify is moving at lightning speed. It's very fast. Given your speed, who are your main competitors? How do you make sure you're ahead of the curve?
So because this is such a new need, industry, want, kind of a problem that the industry is facing, a lot of the times our main competitors are the status quo. People and organizations are still living out of spreadsheets. Can you imagine? You're still living and doing these calculations in spreadsheets and manual manipulations and trying to get the right data and the right databases. And so we're really challenging the status quo, as well as, competing, but not so much competing with consultants that have been hired to do these one-off analysis throughout the entire time, right? And organizations know they can't hire consultants every year. They can't do that. So
They're expensive, right?
they're expensive. Consultants can charge you millions of dollars, an arm and a leg, to do the work that we do. And it's not scalable, it's not sustainable, and you're never going to get the visibility that you get through Kloopify.
There's no monitoring.
No monitoring, no trending, no supplier engagement, no procurement, supercharging procurement. And so that's where technology really allows you to make those changes.
Can you tell us any funny stories, unbelievable stories that only happens to entrepreneurs that you've encountered that you wouldn't think would happen, but surprise, Daniella, this thing happened to you?
Woo! Okay, so I'll tell you one that isn't so funny, and then one that I think a lot of entrepreneurs will probably face. Well, when I mentioned earlier, I fundraised, I raised a round of funding, and there were times that some investors would look at me and go, Daniella, this is a really hard problem. If I don't understand how you're going to solve it, then how can you understand how you're going to solve this problem? It's really difficult, and so they would undermine your intelligence, or things like, Daniella, you are a woman of color with a non-technical background starting a technology company. There are so many cards stacked against you. Why should I invest in you? Because you're already, falling short when it comes to the cards stacked against you. And so my fun response to that one was always like, yeah, my whole life cards have been stacked against me, but it hasn't stopped me then. It won't stop me now. I use those cards as a way to outwork and outcompete anybody who I go against. And I don't care what kind of founder or what kind of startup I'm going against or Kloopify is going against. We are an incredible team. We're a stellar team. And it has nothing to do with my appearance or my gender.
Right. Don't underestimate the power of hard work and resilience, I say.
Absolutely.
Especially from an athlete.
Yeah.
I mean, you've proven superhuman capabilities in the past. That means you have it in you to keep doing it.
Oh, absolutely. I take a very athlete mentality to the startup space because, I played Division I tennis in college, and especially in tennis, it's a sport where you're going to lose a lot. You are going to lose a lot of points. You're going to lose a lot of sets. You're going to lose a lot of matches and tournaments. And so you get into the mentality of not letting the loss define you and not letting the loss stop you. It is about growing from the loss, learning from the loss. And if you are used to losing a lot, and listen, in order for me to become a Division I athlete, I also had to win a lot, right? So in order to win a lot, you have to lose a lot. And if you have that mentality, any loss or hit you may feel as a company or even as a person, you know that there's a tomorrow to keep going, to keep fighting.
I remember one conversation where I gave you critical feedback that was hard to digest, and I thought you were never going to speak to me again. And then 1 week later, you came back and you said, I hear you. Just give me some time to figure this out.
Yeah.
And from there, we've been friends ever since.
Because that's the thing. You have to be self-aware enough to know that
what was the purpose of her, telling me this?
What was the purpose of that feedback?
It wasn't good delivery on my end.
Tammy, no. Tammy, it was perfect delivery. It's not about it. You have to be able to take feedback, whether the delivery or feedback of the delivery was perfect or not the thing. You have to be a grown adult enough, and you have to be self-aware enough that you are going to do things wrong. People are going to tell you to do things wrong, and it's not an attack on you, your person, or your intelligence. It's to help you. It's to help you grow. And listen, people are going to give you feedback. Everyone has advice, right? Now it's your job to understand who's giving you the advice, what are they saying, and does it matter, and should you apply it? And when you gave me your advice and your feedback, I took it. I took an analysis of who was giving it to me, what were they giving, and why were they giving it to me? And when you do that, I realized, like many times, hey, this feedback is valid, this feedback is real, and I should listen to what's being said. Now let me figure out what I'm going to do because of it. And we did. Look at us. We figured it out. We did it. We've got paying clients. We've got a product and market. We got through the things that we needed to get through, but it wouldn't have happened if you shut down.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And a lot of founders, that's a special skill because a lot of founders will be more defensive as opposed to marinating on what's being said and why they're saying it. What is the intention behind
Mhm.
it? And there's no easy way to give critical feedback. So, yes, I can spin my wheels trying to perfect the delivery. At the end of the day, time is of the essence. I just had to give it to you.
Mhm.
Your job was take it for what it is.
Yep. Analyze it, listen, and then figure out what your plan is going to be.
And then, shameless plug, how can people watching support Kloopify today?
Couple things, right? So check us out on Kloopify.com. Follow us on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. But more importantly, and above all, if you work in the procurement space, your dad, your mom, your cousin, your aunt, your best friend, your neighbor, if their job is to be in the procurement space, connect them with Kloopify. We are here to help procurement professionals. And my job is to make them the hero. And so if you want your neighbor, your sister, your brother to get a promotion, connect them with Kloopify and we will make them the hero of their organization. So connect us with any procurement professionals in your industry. You can find me on LinkedIn, find me on Kloopify.com, and email me at Daniella at Kloopify.com.
For business leaders, I think there's something to be said about taking your product out of a commoditized space by turning it into a more sustainable product set. So even
Mhm.
if they're not in the procurement space, I think any business leader in charge of product development can benefit from this.
Absolutely.
And then lastly, are there any organizations, individuals that have been key to Kloopify's success that you want to give a shout out to in case they encounter this interview?
Yeah, absolutely. One, Project ScaleUp with Tammy. Highly recommend. She is incredible and an asset. Like I mentioned earlier, she gave us critical feedback and it helped us really make sure that we're heading in the right direction. Ascender is the bootcamp program that Kloopify and myself went through. Highly recommend for anyone just getting started and have an idea they want to get started. I also want to give a shout out to Exchange PGH. If you are in Pittsburgh, Exchange PGH is an entire kind of organization and process dedicated to elevating the entrepreneurial space in Pittsburgh. It's run by two incredible leaders, Adam Pulisic and Kip Muller. They have been incredibly useful to Kloopify. And then, a fun shout out to our lead investors, Black Tech Nation Ventures BC. They believed in Kloopify from the beginning, and I'm excited to have joined forces with them for world domination.
Thank you so much, Danielle. And thank you for all of your tips and knowledge that you've shared during this interview. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you for
Absolutely. Thank
watching,
you so much.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.